What's the difference between the legendary producers that sample and a basic beat maker? Well, after spending years analyzing thousands of beats made by the greats, I've noticed 3 sampling ideas that separate the sampling experts from everyone else. And today I'm going to share what those 3 ideas are. My name is Navie. I've been producing for over 15 years, made sample beats that got millions of streams, and I'm going to share the 3 tips that I believe will help you become better at sampling. So let's start with the first idea. This is a mistake that a lot of producers make when they're choosing their samples. Let me explain it like this. Imagine if I gave you 2 sets of Legos. One has 5 giant blocks and the other has 500 tiny blocks. And then I asked you to build a tower. Now, if your only goal was to build something tall, you'd probably grab the giant blocks. You just stack a few on top of each other and then you're done. And this is kind of like using a full thick sample for your beat. It already sounds big, so if your only goal is to make something quick, this might be the right move for you. But what if I asked you to build something that was more unique, something that shows off your creativity? Well, now all of a sudden those giant blocks aren't so helpful. There's only a few of them, they're bulky, and you don't have any way to shape anything of your own. And this is what happens when you start a beat using a sample that's already full. There's no space left for your own ideas, so you end up struggling to add anything to your sample and get stuck. But again, if we use these smaller Lego pieces, suddenly it's way easier to build something of your own. You've got more control, more flexibility, and you can create your own ideas now. And the same is true for your samples. The thinner and more simple your samples are, the more you're going to be able to add your own ideas. And this is a theme that you can see all the time. The great producers go from using these big samples to smaller and smaller samples as they become more skilled. For example, we can see Dr. Dre using bigger samples like this early in his career. In order to make beats like this. And then as he evolved and became more skilled, we start seeing him using smaller samples like this. To make beats like this. Explosive. West Coast shit, my niggerish ways attract girls that used to turn they back. And this smaller size of the sample is what allows him to add his own ideas into the beat, like that great sounding synth, and even interpolate it to create even more flexibility with his own ideas. Using big samples is absolutely fine, but if you want to grow your skill set, try using smaller samples and building your own ideas around them. This is a good next step as a sampler. But this is where we have to talk about idea number 2. One of the keys to getting your samples to sound more original is by chopping them up and building your own original ideas with them. But this begs the question, how do you chop your samples better? Well, if you watched most tutorials, people will tell you to merely look for these drum transients in your sample, those big huge spikes, and place your chops there. And yet there's a big problem with this approach that doesn't get mentioned enough. Take a listen to this loop that I made while only focusing on chopping on the drum transients. While this loop does make sense and we definitely can make a beat out of this, we will likely run into a problem, which is that when turning this into a full beat, this is gonna get boring fast. And it's because this idea doesn't really go anywhere. Let me show you what I mean. Here, I'm gonna open up Note Grabber. This is my sample mapper plugin that lets you see every note inside of your samples. And if we take a look at what's going on in our idea that we've built with these chops, you'll notice exactly what I'm talking about. Even though we can hear and see some of those notes in the higher range do change, those notes down here don't go anywhere. And this might be the reason why your beats don't feel like they go anywhere or feel repetitive. So this begs the question, what is a better way of chopping then? Well, here's another legend of sampling Ninth Wonder explaining what he listens for.
It's not that many people on the mainstream side of things now that chop samples the way I chop. In order for you to chop a sample, you must understand chord progression.
Chopping on the progression inside the sample can help you build an idea that not only works, but will make the beat actually feel like it's going somewhere. Now, this is something that you can do by ear for sure, or you can use a sample mapper to see what's actually going on in your sample. For example, if I change my chops from this To this, listen to what's happening in our loop now. Notice the difference that we see here. The notes in the lower range are now changing too, and this is what I mean by chopping on the sample's progression. This is what helps our beat actually sound like it's going somewhere. So when you're making your decision on where to chop, think about those lower notes in the sample, and this can help you make better chopping decisions for your sample. And the last concept is about the type of material a sample gives you. This one took me a while to figure out, but once I realized it, it was just a game changer, and here's the best way I can explain it. Let's say you and I are at a restaurant and I order a slice of apple pie, but I tell the waiter, can you add a little bit of extra cinnamon and sugar on top? You'd probably think, all right, this guy knows how to party. Cinnamon and sugar go with apple pie. But now imagine this. What if I ordered steak and then I told the waiter, can you add a little bit of extra cinnamon and sugar on top? You would probably think I'm a sick, demented freak. It's not the cinnamon and sugar that are bad, it's that they don't work with the thing that I actually ordered. And the same idea applies to sampling. What you add to your sample depends on what type of material it's giving you. And to make things simple for myself, I tend to think about samples as 5 different types of materials. Samples can give you bass lines, chords, melodies, drums, and/or ear candy. And obviously a combination of these as well. So whenever I listen for samples, I break down what I'm hearing using this framework. For example, you can hear in this sample we have chords from the piano in the sample plus a melody with a flute in the sample. So we probably need to add a bass line, some ear candy can also help the beat sound more full. And just to make the beat sound a little bit more full, I'm going to add an additional melodic idea. Not necessary since the sample already has this, but just helpful here. And now finally the drums. Even if your sample has drums, usually you'll have to add in your own just to thicken them up, but it depends on the sample, of course. Now, after watching this, you might be wondering, how do you actually do this correctly? How do you add sounds to your sample in a way that actually works and fits? Well, next to me is a full video where I break down a complete framework that you can use to add to your samples much more easily. Check out NoteGrabber, my plugin built for producers who sample. You can actually check it out by clicking this other box next to me and click one of these things. I leave it up to you, but you must click. Click something.